Genesis chapter 4. Genesis chapter 4. The title of this is The Hesitation of Devastation or Reformation. That's a mouthful. So I'll say it again. The hesitation of devastation or reformation. I know you're scratching your head saying, what in the world does that mean? We'll cover it. Genesis 4, verse 7. God is going to say something to Cain that applies to every single person, and you have to review it yourself, put yourself in this situation. This is a practical sermon. We're not really dealing with doctrine this morning. We're talking about you and your life, day to day, every moment. Genesis 4, verse 7. God asked an important question. If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. You can take that to the bank and count on it. In your life, just before sin struck, you know what was happening? You were not doing well. Had you been doing well, you would not have gone to the door where sin was lying. Sin lies at the door that says no good. Sin is sitting right outside the door that says not doing well. The door that says doing well, doing good, has holiness standing right on the outside of that. That'll be Jesus Christ in Romans chapter 3. Behold, I stand at the door. That's the door he's standing at. The door that says well, good. The door that says not doing well, not doing good, that's the one Cain opened. And then he started to commune with sin, with wickedness. So in our life, we've got to learn the trigger, the key. Understand when we're in this situation, which way to run. Remember Lot in Genesis 19, Lot lingered. He was hesitant. The angel said, hey man, you got to get out of this thing. We're going to burn it down to the ground. And he lingered. That's that hesitation we're talking about. That hesitation is, what do I do? There's a doorbell ringing at the front and there's a doorbell ringing at the back. Which one am I going to answer? Okay? We know the key is if you'll do well, you'll go to the front door. If you're not going to do well, you're going to go to the back door. And you know who's standing at that one. Sin. Sin lieth at that door. There are moments in a man's life that are critical, pivotal points. These junctions are life-changing. Literally. If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? If thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. Hesitation of devastation or reformation. Look at James chapter 1. James chapter 1. James 1 verse 14. James 1:14. It says, but every man is tempted when he is drawn away. There's our hesitation of his own lust and enticed. Then when lust hath conceived, decision, door's been opened. It bringeth forth sin. He walks in the door. And sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. The next verse, very interesting. Do not err, my beloved brethren. Do good, don't do error. The error would be to not do well. A Christian is supposed to do well at all times. That is a tough task. To do well 24/7, fail all the time, over and over. You find yourself saying, oh, I messed that one up. Okay, well, there's an answer for it. Get in the habit of doing well. Get in the habit of doing good. Then you'll know where the front door is, and you forget about the back door. But most people have gotten into such a habit of going to the door where sin is knocking that we don't even remember where the front door is. We've got to do well. In the moment of hesitation, it's important for a man to find the good way of escape that God has promised will be there. So, let's start noticing the moments of hesitation. Life's full of them. Millions, probably thousands a day, where you can think this thought or not think this thought. You can do this thing or not do this thing. You can say this or not say this. And those moments start testing you. Test yourself. Now, most people could care less. Until it's blown up in their face, they could care less about the decision that was made. But those decisions lead to a conclusion. You're not where you are today just by accident. It's been a process of decisions you made. How did you make those? There was hesitation, consideration, and then a conclusion. Look at the first point we'll look at is the hesitation of devastation. Sometimes when you hesitate, you choose the wrong path. You choose the wrong choice. And that's dangerous. We don't want to do that. He says in 2 Samuel 11, verse 1. 2 Samuel 11, verse 1. I call this the hesitation for vacation equals devastation. Hesitation for vacation equals devastation. 2 Samuel 11, verse 1. This is David. He's been out fighting nonstop, year after year. He's been beating up on nations and doing a very good job of it. There comes a time, though, where you think, okay, I've earned a reprieve. After all I've been through, after the battles I've fought, I've proved myself. It's time for me to take a vacation and enjoy something. That's David. Look at it, verse 1, 2 Samuel 11, 1. And it came to pass, after the year was expired, at the time when kings go forth to battle, that David sent Joab and his servants with him, and all Israel. And they destroyed the children of Ammon and besieged Rabbah. But David tarried still at Jerusalem. I'm just going to have a staycation, staying home with no responsibility. Christian doesn't get that choice. The right thing would have been in our verse, the time kings go forth to battle, get up and go to battle. I don't care if you don't feel like it. Get up and go. Remember, if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. Matter of fact, it was his next door neighbor. There's where the sin happened. This is Bathsheba. Okay, watch it. Hesitation for a vacation leads to devastation. There's another one. 1 Kings 19, verse 9. Hesitation in the middle of a mission results in devastation. 1 Kings 19, 9. This Elijah, he's been running from the wicked Jezebel, and he's had a tough mission on his own. 40 days he's going to run. And how many miles was it? Lots of miles. We figured it up. It's from here, down here, all the way up here. He's moving. He's covering some territory. No sleep, no rest. Let's find him, verse 9. And he came thither unto a cave and lodged there. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him and said unto him, What doest thou here? Hey boy, I didn't say you could land here. What did I tell you to do? Get up and get to moving. He was hesitating. Okay, he just needed a little break. A little hesitation. God said, no, the break time was way before this. Remember, I let you sleep and I gave you food. Then I let you go back to sleep and gave you some more food. And said, This is because the journey I've got for you is going to be long and hard. Now, I didn't say it was break time again. This is the long and hard. Get to moving. Okay, don't take a hesitation in the middle of a mission. When we're on a mission, we got to keep on it. When God gives you a battle to fight, you fight it. You don't take an R&R right in the middle of no man's land. You don't say, okay, the battle's fighting. Hey,
Guys, time out. Y'all don't shoot this way. I'm taking a break. I'm on a smoke break. You might be smoking.
Okay, that's spiritually the same way. When God gives us a battle to fight, you fight it till it's done. That's not time to declare time out. There's no technical fouls where, everybody can go back to the bench and wait on one person to do all the work. Don't work that way. Look at, let's see, that was 1 Kings 19:9. The next one is in Jeremiah 4, verse 14. Hesitation in the imagination, this is dangerous, equals devastation. Hesitation in the imagination. Now, believe it or not, that's where you and I spend the most of our time, in imagination. It can be good or it can be very bad. Jeremiah 4, verse 14. O Jerusalem, wash thine heart from wickedness, that thou mayest be saved. How long shall thy vain thoughts lodge within thee? That's a problem. Vain thoughts. The imagination is a scary thing because the imagination will propel you to move. You dwell on something long enough, it won't be long before you're acting it out. Imagination is dangerous. If it's not a good one, you just take a hesitation from life and go to your imaginary movie scene just because that's fun and that's relaxing. Be careful. That imagination will lead to something. He said right here, your vain thoughts need to be gotten rid of. If you're not careful, they'll be loitering where they shouldn't in your mind. Put up a sign, no loitering. If thou doest not well, sin's at that door, and you'll be opening. All right, let's see the other side of it. We've seen the hesitation of devastation. Let's see the hesitation of reformation. Now, this is a good one. This says, wait a minute, I need to slow down. Something just happened that threw me for a loop. I need to slow down. I hear somebody knocking at both doors. I need to know which one I'm going to and how to answer the door. And that's what we've got to do, because it never happens when you're prepared for it. It seems like out of nowhere, life has slapped you upside the head, and now all of a sudden you've got to make a decision. Well, why didn't you do that yesterday when I was ready? Doesn't happen that way. So let's start preparing now for what we can't prepare for. Let's see it. The hesitation of devastation, now the hesitation of reformation. Acts chapter 15. Acts chapter 15, verse 29. This is the disciples deciding, hey look, the Jews are not the only ones in the clique. Now the Gentiles are getting saved. What do we tell these guys? We know that the Old Testament law is out. So we're not going to tell them, hey, you've got to live by the law. But we need to lay down some kind of ground rules. The Gentiles are just heathens. They're wicked. And they were. And we are. So he said, we need to do something to give them a baseline from which to grow from. Okay, here's what we'll tell them. This is not to be saved. This is how to begin your Christian walk. These are good ground rules. Verse 29. That ye abstain from meats offered to idols, and from blood, and from things strangled, and from fornication, from which if ye keep yourselves, here it is, ye shall do well. Fare ye well. The opposite of going to the door where sin's lying. We're going to do well. He says if you want to do well, here's a handful of rules. You obey these and that gets you moving in the right direction. Now you're not heading toward the back door, you're heading toward the front door where Jesus is knocking, saying, behold, I stand there and I want to come in and sup with you. But you got to open the door. You can't get to the door if you're not moving in the right direction. He says these things right here will help you do well, move toward the right door. Look at it in 2 Corinthians 5. 2 Corinthians 5, verse 10. 2 Corinthians 5:10. I am trying to move because I'll post the notes. The notes on this, I've got, 26 points. And I got way more than we're ever going to cover, but I'll just hit a few of them. 2 Corinthians 5, verse 10. For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that everyone may receive the things done in his body according that he hath done. Now he's going to tell you how he qualifies it. The front door or the back door. Look at it. Whether it be good or bad. There's no escape hatch. There's no sunroof you can get out of. It's one of two decisions. You did good or you did bad. There's no gray area. It's black or white. Did you do good in that position or did you do bad? The 100 million decisions you've made through your lifetime. Go through them one by one. Was that a good decision or a bad one? Go ahead and think through it. You're going to one day. You know what you can do? You can think through it and you can ask for forgiveness for it. You know what he does? He forgives, cleanses, and throws it as far as the east is from the west. Guess what? That one won't come back home. It's a good idea. Go back through them. Think them through. Was it good or was it bad? That's how he said, I'm judging. Good or bad. Hesitation for reformation. What you'll do in a situation when you are not prepared for. That's what we're talking about. What to do when you don't know what to do. Life is full of those instances. Something happens. You're not prepared for it. How do you respond to it? And there's many, many ways to do it. You'll start noticing them throughout your Bible. As you read the Bible, you'll see God say, this is something that's good. Okay, now, when moment of hesitation arrives, pull out your list of things that are good to do. All right, could I get busy on any of these things so I don't head to the wrong door? Okay, let's look at them. He says, if thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted. We want to be accepted. We want to do well. The first thing is impel. Impel. You're going to learn some vocabulary today. Impel. There's more vocabulary that hard words I didn't put in this, but you'll see them in the notes. Impel. Impel means drive or force. To urge someone to do something. Okay? In the Bible, we'll see this with the two words, good, that's what we're looking for, and cheer. You know, a Christian should be cheerful. I know that sounds harsh. For most Bible believers, that's a harsh thing to say because they love being upset and mad about sin and wickedness. But you should be a cheerful person. You should be. According to the Bible, Acts 23, verse 11. Acts 23, verse 11. Put yourself in Paul's boat. You won't be there long. The boat's falling apart. Everything's going to pot. It's all breaking up. These people are scared they're going to die. They said, we got prisoners on board. We might ought to just kill them so that we don't get in trouble for letting them escape. Acts 23, verse 11. And the night following, the Lord stood by him and said, be of good cheer. If you'll notice, just do that phrase. Run that phrase through concordance. See all the times God tells you to be of good cheer. It's over and over and over. When he shows up, that's one of his favorite things to say. Fear not, be of good cheer. When you see, if you're in his presence, that's one of the first things he tells you. In his presence is fullness of joy. Okay, you couldn't tell it by looking at most Christians, or else maybe they're not in his presence very often. Okay, let's move on before we get too convicted here. Look at verse 22. That was God telling Paul, cheer up, boy. I know everything just fell apart and your boat's sunk and everybody's riding around on boards. Cheer up. What a time to cheer up. Verse 22. So it becomes his mission. Okay, God's given me a message. He told me to cheer up and I'm going to do it. Okay, now I'm going to use it. I'm not going to be selfish with it. I'm going to use that message for someone else. Verse 22. And now I exhort you to be of good cheer, for there shall be no loss of any man's life among you, but of the ship. Acts 27, verse 22. Oh, I didn't tell you what chapter we're in. Acts 27, 22. There it is.
Be of good cheer.
Be of good cheer, fear not. So now he starts telling the people, hey, you cheer up. But you know what happens when you tell somebody the right message, when you give them the truth? They don't hear it. Just like we are when God tells us something, we usually don't hear it. So he says it 3 or 4 times. So Paul's going to repeat it. Verse 25. Wherefore, sirs, be of good cheer, for I believe God, that it shall be even as it was told me. Verse 36. Then were they all of good cheer. It finally worked. And they also took some meat. Just a side note there, that's what God intends you to eat. Meat. Chapter 27, verse 36. All right, here's your list of verses. Acts 23:11, Acts 27:22, Acts 27:25, Acts 27:36. If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted. Doing well is having good cheer. Imagine that. A Christian looks like something that you would want to be. You should. The world should look at you and think, yeah, they're a happy person. You know, happiness creates a crowd. It really does. Now, you can't just determine to be happy on your own. Something instigates that. Something impels, propels, motivates you, and happiness is the result. For us, it's his presence. Get in his presence and you'll get happiness. There's fullness of joy there. Let's move on. He says, not only impel, but intention. Let's look at intention. Romans 8, verse 28. Romans 8, verse 28. It says, for we know that all things work together for good. That's what we want, good. Remember, we're looking for good, or we're looking for well. We want to move in the right direction. He says, for a Christian, don't worry about it. All things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. All things in your life are working for good. Believe it or not, they are. For Paul, the ship that just busted up, and now they're all scattered along in the ocean, holding on to boards. Don't worry about it, Paul. It's working for your good. In your life, the problems that are happening on a day-to-day basis. If you're a Christian, you fit right there. Now, what the temptation is, the hesitation will be, somebody is intending this in my life. The devil's doing me wrong. Okay, now you can go with that and wander right close to the back door. That's not what's happening. The devil doesn't have sovereign right. He's a servant. So he's not doing anything. God's working all things to good. regardless of what it looks like. We just saw Paul's boat bust apart, but things are working for good. It doesn't feel like it, but they are. So notice God's intention. Okay? Take a little hesitation break and say, whoa, pull back. It's not like it seems. God intends good. He's working situations out the way he intends. It's not what it looks like. Look at Philippians chapter 1, verse 6. Philippians 1:6. Philippians 1:6. He says, being confident. Okay, that's a strong word. Confident. That means you know it, you're proud of it, and you're the preacher for it. You're confident. Being confident of this very thing, that he, talking about God, which hath begun, what kind of work? A good work. In you will perform it until the day of Jesus Christ. Where's your part in any of that? You ain't got no part in it. You're the work he created. You didn't do that. You didn't build that. God did. And he says God's going to finish it. He didn't ask for your input on it. Okay? So when life happens, decide God intends this to go down this way. His intentions toward me are good because I'm his creature. If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? You will. Let's find the well and the good. Impede is the next thing. Impede. That's to delay or to prevent someone or something by obstructing or hindering them. Impede. Romans 14, verse 21. Sometimes when you're hesitating over a situation, maybe the thing to do is to consider, will my actions result in the hindrance of another person? Will it offend someone else? Regardless of whether or not I think it's right, would it harm somebody else? Romans 14, verse 21. It is good neither to eat flesh, nor drink wine, nor anything whereby thy brother stumbleth, or is offended, or is made weak. He said it's a good idea for you not to even eat or drink if the brother that's going to walk in is going to be offended. So, if you know your buddy's having a fast day, he's on a fast, don't go to his house with a bag full of potato chips. Okay, it's that simple. Be courteous. Think of someone besides you. And think of someone else's position. Maybe they've not learned this is right, this is wrong, this is okay, this isn't. And they're still on baby stage number 1. Don't put your finger in the light socket. So, maybe for them, you don't bring over any electrical gadgets that need to be plugged in. They've not grown to the stage where they can handle the electricity. Okay? So he says right there, just because something's right or wrong doesn't mean whether or not you participate in it. You need to consider, would it cause somebody else to stumble? Would it hinder their life? Would it hinder their walk? Okay, that's a good hesitation. Slow down, slide back, say, wait a minute. This is a new Christian over here. Is he going to misunderstand what I'm doing? Okay, well, maybe I can just wait. He's not going to be around here for long. Just because I can do something doesn't mean that it's right to do it. Okay, that's a good hesitation. If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? You will. Look at influence. Influence. That's a good hesitation. How am I being influenced, and how am I being an influence? When life happens, out of nowhere, and you're not sure what to do, pause. Take a hesitation break. And say, wait a minute. Is this going to influence somebody, the decision I'm about to make, for good? Or will it influence them for bad? If I go with this side or go with this side, is it going to put me in a position of being influenced for good or for bad? That's a good way to make a decision. He says in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 33. 1 Corinthians 15, 33. Be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners. Okay, if you've got some good manners, you want to hang on to them. They're not easy to come by. Good manners take work to achieve. Okay, got some good manners? Good, hang on to them. He said right here, evil communications will destroy them. So, stay away from evil people. If you don't, you might not realize it, and most people don't. You can hang out with the wrong crowd, and what you do is you lose good manners. I'm going to show you something to start thinking about. Watch this in your life. When you've hung with the wrong crowd, when you've done something that is, okay, whatever, it didn't affect me, I've not changed, they're like that, and I'm just being a shining star in the middle of the darkness. That's what everybody thinks. Okay, after you've been around that mess for a while, come back. Take stock. Did you lose your gracefulness with people? After the interaction of the world, after they've rubbed off on you for a while, have you lost your graciousness with other people? Are you quick to answer? Are you suddenly more selfish than you were before? Probably, because it happens so quick you don't see it. That's good manners going out the window. Evil communications corrupt good manners. Stay away from evil people. Look at Galatians 5, verse 7. Galatians 5, verse 7. Galatians 5, verse 7. Paul makes it clear people have an effect on people. You've got to be very careful. Galatians 5, verse 7. He says, you did run well. Okay, that's what we want. If you do well, you'll be accepted. He says, you did run well. You were heading toward the front door. You were flat out run. Then all of a sudden, you turned around and ran to the back door. You did run well. Who did hinder you? That you should not obey the truth. It was a who. It was a person. Your influences can suddenly make you do a 180. Just as you're heading fast as you can get to the front door, you hang out with the wrong people. Those influences, before you know it, you'll wind up right at the back door with your hand on the knob. Watch it. Influences are important. If thou doest well, you'll be accepted. Look at endurance. Endurance. Sometimes life has hit you upside the head and you're about to make a decision and you step back and you say, wait a minute, do I really want to make this decision or this decision? Consider endurance, because that's part of a Christian's life. Galatians 6, verse 9. Galatians 6, verse 9. He says, and let us not be weary in well-doing. Okay, so when you're doing good, when you're doing well, the temptation is going to be, I'm wore out with it, tired of it. He says, don't be weary. Endure. For in due season we shall reap if we faint not. He says, I'm going to read these quickly. In 1 Timothy 6:12, he says, fight the good fight. There is a fight that's good. There's a bunch that aren't. Fight the good one. Lay hold on eternal life. He says something else in that verse. He says, thou art also called and hast professed a good profession before many witnesses. There ain't many people doing that. Professing a good profession. Your mouth speaks. It should speak some good things. Good is not something you come up with. Good is something God's revealed. There's not many people speaking what he said. They're speaking what they've made up or what they've plagiarized from the Bible in order to have people worship them. He said, Timothy, you're a good guy. You've done the right things. You've made a good profession before many. But it doesn't stop there. In 2 Timothy 2, verse 3, he says, Thou therefore endure hardness as a good soldier. Okay, the profession is a preacher. That's spouting off something. But a soldier is not a speaker. A soldier takes action. A soldier's a doer. Get up and move. So the Christian life is not about sitting there spouting off all the right things, having all the right answers. It's more about having the answers, speaking the answers, and then proving it with your feet, moving and doing. If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted. Another good thing to consider when you're in life's hesitation in order to make the right move is, as a Christian, what's your employment? Just like your job, you've got a job, and the job requires certain things of you. You have certain duties you know you're supposed to do, and you clock in at this time, and you show up late at this time every day. No. There's certain things that employers require of employees. You're an employee of God. So, what's your employment requirements? Ephesians 2, verse 10. Ephesians 2, verse 10. He says, For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus, unto good works. That's your job. Your job is to produce good works. That's why he employed you. That's why you've got a job. Okay? You're not in the welfare line. You're working for God. And your product you're producing is good works. You should be. In Ephesians 4, verse 28. Ephesians 4, verse 28. Here's a good thing to consider. Let him that stole, if you're a thief, steal no more. But don't stop with just quitting. Start doing. But rather, let him labor, that's work, with his hands, in case you didn't know what labor was. With his hands, the thing which is good. Find something good your hands can do. It's a good idea to get busy physically with this body so it's doing something good. Make this body do something that's right and get it so preoccupied with the project it ain't got time to do something stupid, like bad things. That's a good thing. Now that's a physical thing. That's a fleshly thing. That should be a simple thing. But one way to keep from letting the habits of the flesh take over is give him something new to do. In Ephesians 4:29, he says, here's another thing that men need to do. He says, let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth. Shut your mouth. You ain't got nothing, what's the old saying say? You don't have anything good to say. Don't say anything at all. Okay? He says, let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good. So learn some good things to say, to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace to the hearers. Realize that what you say, somebody has to hear. You realize that? That's right. But most people don't take into account that when they speak, somebody hears it. It's not just You're not just venting. Remember, God got mad at the children of Israel in the Old Testament. He said they murmured in their tents. Okay, they thought nobody could hear that. But he heard it and got mad. When something comes out of your mouth, imagine God sitting right across from you when you just said it. How about this one? Here's a hard one. It's not only the things we say, it's the moans we make. The attitude we express verbally. The eyes we roll. All of those things are communication. And it's proceeding from you. And God's sitting there receiving it. Be careful. Be careful. Your employment. In Colossians 3, verse 20. Man, I've got too much material here. Colossians 3, verse 20. He says, children, obey your parents in all things. And what? All? That can't be fair. It is. In all things. For this is well-pleasing unto the Lord. You'll be heading in the right direction if you'll do this. You're headed to the right door. Obey them in all things. Period. And then he says the same thing over and over. Just write this in your margin or take notes, whatever. Ephesians 6, verse 10 says the same thing. And Ephesians 6, 8. Look at Colossians chapter 1, verse 10. Colossians 1, verse 10. He says that you might walk worthy of the Lord unto all pleasing, being fruitful in every good work, and increasing in the knowledge of God. Okay, one good thing to do when life has hit the pause button and you've got the hesitation is do this. Increase in knowledge of God. Say, wait a minute. If I move this way, or if I say this thing, or if I do this action, is it going to increase the knowledge of God? Sometimes the best thing to do is say, okay, I need to go find out what God says. One good thing to do with your hesitation time is read the Bible. Now, here's what you should have done already. You should have already read the Bible within the past 20 to 24 hours of any situation. Nothing can happen in your life that you have not read the answer for within the past few hours. So reflect. Okay, this hit me out of nowhere. It's not out of nowhere. What did God tell me the last time we were talking? Okay, the knowledge of God will help you. If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted. Now, many times life hits you and you've not read anything. No wonder you don't have the answer. It's there. Go pick up his word and find it. That's not saying you're doomed because you didn't read it. No, it's saying go get it. You didn't read it when you should have. Right now is a good time to start. Good as any time. Okay, the next thing we need to see is the inspiration. Inspiration is important because that's not human. That's God. Inspiration is this book. 2 Peter 1, verse 19. 2 Peter 1:19. 2 Peter 1:19, we covered this morning. He says, we have also a more sure word of prophecy, whereunto you do well. That's what we want to do, is we want to do well. Okay, here's how you do well. That you take heed. Okay, what's he comparing this to? If you back up a few verses, he talks about we were on the Mount of Transfiguration, and we saw these great things happen. He said, but I got to tell you something. There's something bigger than that. We've got a more sure word written down of prophecy. And this is the one you should take heed to, and that'll help you do well. Okay. So, if you take heed to the Word of God, you'll do well. Look at inquest. Inquest, that's questioning, searching. trying to find an answer. Sometimes the thing to do when life has beat you up and you're not sure what move to make is to make this one. Ask God. Now, don't ask him and then go eat some pizza and lay down. That's not God talking. That's Domino's monster. What you want to do is search the scripture for an answer. That's where God gives answers. Ask him for the answer, then let him talk. A lot of people like talking to him, but not letting him talk. Let him talk. And really, you don't have to spend a whole lot of time asking him the question. He already knows your question. Just open the book and find the answer. Hebrews chapter 5, verse 14. Hebrews 5, verse 14. He says, "But strong meat belongeth to them that are of full age, even those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern." Ooh, there's the front door and the back door. To discern both good and evil. Okay? You've got to use the word. If you'll use this word to find answers. And when somebody has a question, you'll use this word to answer. Then he says you'll get discernment and you'll know the difference between good, front door, and bad, the back door. Jesus Christ is standing at the front one. Holiness hangs out there. The back door, sin's lying there. Discernment comes through the use, and that gets you to the door. If thou doest well, you'll be accepted. Look at one more thing, and I think we'll call it a night. No, we'll get one more point. I'm going to move quick. I promise. Ignorance. Ignorance. That's in James 4, verse 17. James 4, verse 17. There's no excuse. There really is not an excuse. When we fail, it's not somebody else's fault. When we do something wrong, nobody else can take the blame for it. It's us. It wasn't your environment. It wasn't any of the cute little things that we try to come up with to blame it on. It was us. Look at it, James 4, 17. Therefore, to him that knoweth to do good, and doeth it not, to him it is sin. Okay, life has hit you upside the head. You're in the daze. What do? You better do good. Good will get you to the front door. If you refuse to do good, you just open the back door. Sin is lying right there. To him it is sin. Now, what happens when you say, hey, I understand all that, but I'm beyond that and I made the wrong choice? Okay. The Bible is not a book of hopelessness. The Bible is a book of hope. You can still turn around. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, but there is an answer. Let's see how to break the hold of harmful hesitations, the ones that you've made the wrong decision with. There is an answer. In Isaiah chapter 5, verse 18. Isaiah 5, 18. 300 or 400 more verses and we're done. Isaiah 5, verse 18. It says, woe unto them that draw iniquity with cords of vanity. Somebody's running around and they're attached, like with a cord, to iniquity through vanity. And sin, as it were, with a cart rope. The problem is that sin has run under the door and has attached a cord or a rope to you. He said some people are walking around, they can't get to the front door because the cord won't let them get there. They're attached to it. Look at it again, Proverbs chapter 5, verse 22. Proverbs 5, verse 22. It It says, his own iniquities shall take the wicked himself, and he shall be holden with the cords of his sin. Sin that was sitting outside the door has run a cord up under the door, and it's attached. The more times you make the wrong decision, the stronger the cord gets. And the harder it is to find the front door. It's a leash that won't let you get to the good front door. Romans chapter 12. Romans chapter 12, verse 21. Here's how we chop the cord. Get the hatchet out and chop it. Romans 12, 21. Be not overcome of evil. Here's your formula. But overcome evil with good. So go get your Bible out, find out what it says is good, and start chopping on the cord. Do some good things. He says that'll overcome evil. There is hope. There's an answer. Go back a couple of chapters. Chapter 2, verse 6. Romans 2, verse 6. Romans 2, verse 6 to 7. He says, who shall render to every man according to his deeds? Something you do. To them who by patient continuance in well-doing seek for glory, honor, and immortality, eternal life. So if you'll continue in doing well, you start chopping that cord apart. And it's less likely that cord's going to hold you and keep you from getting to the doing well. Do well. In Genesis 4:7, our verse said, if thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted. You will be from God's own lips. However, also from God's lips, if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door.
Come ye sinners, lost and